What is up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new YouTube video, a brand new episode of The Atmosphere, brought to you by the Lead Sports Media. Again, here I am Cameron Prichard, and I've just got questions about this playoffs, man. I've just got questions now. So if you watched the game last night, you know Lakers-Warriors was the only game on, and you watched the Warriors absolutely blow the Lakers out. Classic Warriors third quarter avalanche. Warriors kept out shooting the Lakers. AD had a terrible game. You just saw it all, but you could probably turn that thing off halfway through the third quarter. I don't know, watching that, it just really got me thinking about, like, really what's the ceiling for some of these teams? What's the floor for some of these teams? Who's really contenders and who's kind of just pretending here, you know? And yes, I know to some extent everyone competing is a contender because they put themselves in the position to be contending for a championship. I mean, they're literally 2 rounds away from being in the NBA. But I don't know, just watching the games, you can obviously tell that some of these teams just have a higher floor than some of these other teams, and the ceiling for some of these teams are just limited to anything. What I want to do here today, I'm just gonna rapid fire through the 8 teams left here on both sides of the bracket here, and I think I'm just gonna rapid fire. Just kind of give my insight, give my thoughts, just what I'm seeing. I don't really even want to dive in too much into the stats, really, but you can just tell, like I said before, that you can just tell when watching these teams that there's just tiers to it, man. There's levels to this for sure. Whether it be the pathway the team has, the personnel the team has, the coaching, you know, just things that whether it's in their control or not in their control, some teams just naturally are going to have a better chance and naturally just look way better than some of these other teams do. So getting into it, we're looking at the pretenders and the contenders of the second round. There were a few games in each series. You can almost have a big enough sample size to at least see the trends that's going to be continuing on for the rest of the postseason. If anything, getting straight into it, the first team I actually want to cover here is going to be the team that made me think about this video last night when I was watching that Warriors-Lakers game, is going to be the Lakers. Obviously, LA fans aren't going to be very happy about this, but I have to give my first pretender stamp to the Lakers of all teams. A team with I would say, mildly even ceiling, you know what I mean? And by ceiling, I mean, you can really just look at how far Anthony Davis goes and how good Anthony Davis is. He's really their ceiling. From Game 1 to Game 2 was a prime example of that. You had him dominating the boards and scoring in Game 1, which led to a Lakers win, and then damn near non-existent in Game 2, which wasn't going to get it done. The Lakers go as far as AD goes, and I feel like just that level of variability in their game, they have to put so much trust and, honestly, so much workload on guys like Austin Reeves, Dennis Schroeder, D'Angelo Russell, and you just need them to show up night in, night out, especially if LeBron's not going to be showing up night in, night out. So I just feel like the workload they have on some of the other guys, if AD's not being 2020 AD where they literally won the championship, I don't know how much money I could put on them if I were they can't get themselves going in the paint, if they're not rebounding, if they don't start the game off good, you know. I feel like if they take a punch, they wobble, you know, and it's hard for them to bounce back in a sense. If they don't have the shooting, they don't have the pace all the time to really just keep themselves in the possession battle sometimes, and like I just said, the shooting really, it just isn't there to sometimes keep up with teams like the Warriors, like what we saw last night. There's some gripes I have with it, because you see how good Jared Vanderbilt has become with the role he's been given on Steph Curry. I mean, Darvin Ham has the defense figured out to an extent. And we've seen what AD is capable of. Like I said, in Game 1, they go as far as he goes, and he can bring a lot to the table. But even when it comes down to it, if they win this series, they have to face Denver, the Suns' next series, which we'll get into later. But I kind of leaning it might be Denver. I don't know if they have the juice to get through that. A lot of questions, man. A lot of questions. So when it comes down to it, as said before, Lakers get the first pretender stamp. Jumping to the next team in that same game like we saw last night, I feel I have no choice but to call it the defending champs contender. Game 2 of this series was a prime example. They were just playing their way. You could tell the offense was free-flowing. The ball movement was going. Steph was off to start the game, but he still had like 7.7 assists, I'm pretty sure, in the first quarter, first half. So if he wasn't scoring, he was still distributing, and he was getting the other guys involved for sure. And when I say everyone involved, I mean everyone involved. You had Draymond with double-digit points, Michael Green with double-digit points, Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson had 30 points. The bench was scoring. Moses Moody had his own 10 points. They hit 21 threes, so the looks were there, obviously. So you could tell things were open for them. They were playing their game. I think midway through the second quarter was when Klay Thompson really had his takeover, really made it a 10-point lead, I think, at halftime, and then like I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, a classic Warriors third quarter avalanche. A team like the Lakers with no shooting, you know, they're just not going to be able to keep up with someone like the Warriors when they're hitting their shots. They've shown a little bit of versatility. Kevon Looney has absolutely shown he has the motor to get it done, but also they switched Draymond and Kevon Looney last game on Game 2, and Draymond absolutely put the clamps on AD. You could tell. he was non-existent. When it comes down to it, I feel like the Warriors have just shown so many different ways to win. Steve Kerr is obviously a championship level head coach, so he knows how to get it done and make adjustments when needed. And if the Warriors can somehow manage to squeeze any ounce of life with Jordan Poole and Dante DiVincenzo, just some of their key role guys to keep themselves going, I feel like they'll be in such a better position, and this is just only going to raise their ceiling. Going back to what I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm really looking at the floor and the ceiling of some of these teams, and when it comes down to it, the floor of the Warriors is just higher than a team like the Lakers, because they're going to find different ways to win. You know, when it comes down to it, Steve Kerr knows how to make his in-game adjustments, knows how to find ways to win games. Steph Curry, if he's not scoring like we saw last night, he's going to find ways to get other guys involved. It takes a guy like Draymond to buy in and really understand not just his role, and obviously how much he means to the team, but not letting himself get distracted and losing sight of what he means to the team. That he locked in on defense last night, and it was a key factor. It was a key reason the Warriors won that one. So Warriors get my first Contenders stamp of the video, and we are going to move on to the other West series. This one, not going to lie, not as excited to talk about. Suns fan, true to heart, so it's going to hurt my heart saying what I'm going to have to say here. Between the Suns and the Nuggets, looking at the Suns first, I'm sad to say, but I think I have to give him the pretender stamp for this, just for this playoff year at least. There's still opportunity. I don't wanna fall too much into the trap of them being down 0-2 right now. I don't want to fall too much into the trap, but there's gonna be a lot. There's gonna be a lot to prove in this Game 3 tonight. The true colors are gonna be shown, and with Chris Paul getting another injury like that, it's so unfortunate, man. You hate to see him go out like that, but they couldn't really afford to lose a guy like that. They already don't really know who they want to be. Monty doesn't know who he wants to play off the bench, but since Chris Paul is now out, he's looking to play more Terrence Ross and more TJ Warren, according to him from the last practice they had. I still don't know if it's going to be enough. I just don't know. That the depth is really what's getting me. I hate that it's been such a main talking point, but I think it's really what's getting me. And especially, like I said, they couldn't afford another injury. So too many guys down the line who are solid, and I mean, maybe even above average at certain things, but can just get targeted on either end of the floor on another thing, and it's just not enough. You can't ask for Book and Kevin Durant to really carry the workload. They've been playing like 45 minutes a game. DA has been such in and out this entire playoff series, but I mean, still, you can only expect so much from him. I just said this, but I don't want to overreact to them being down 0-2, because they looked so good. Alright, I'm not even going to say so good, but I mean, they had like a 13-2 record with KD in the starting lineup coming into the series. So I mean, like, they were figuring out ways to win still. Just such a formidable opponent in the Denver Nuggets, just such a high-powered offense. You can tell that the Suns just weren't really ready for something like that. Give them an off season, give them time to build around KD and Book and see what happens with Chris Paul, DA. You know, they're going to have a lot of questions coming into this off season about their roster construction, but can only go so far this year. I'm excited to watch this Game 3 tonight. Their contender-pretender status is going to be up in the air as of tonight, because, I mean, they could really show something at home and just click in a different way. They haven't, but I gotta still give them the pretender stamp as much as I hate. Moving on to the obvious other contender in the West, the Nuggets. We already knew they had such a high level and high-powered offense, but they've really shown a high level of defense in especially these last two games against the Suns that I think is going to be able to carry over and really puts them in contender status. It's always been the question with the Nuggets. They're going to go as far as their defense goes, as far as Jokic is going to be able to take them on that side. But Aaron Gordon has really made it a point to take initiative, and really, he's made KD's life hell, I'm not going to lie, in these last two games. He's become their anchor. Guys like KCP have really stepped up, and it's their length, it's their size that has really come into play and has really made an impact on this series and their last series too against the Wolves. One of those things, they were kind of stumbling towards the end of the year coming into the playoffs, but they might just be clicking right at the right time again that they might be trouble. And looking at their opponent, I'm feeling like this Warriors-Lakers series, they're just going to beat the absolute hell out of each other. So they're going to have a nice pathway coming into the Western Conference Finals, and then if they win that, go into the NBA Finals, because who knows what's going to happen in the East, but they might have one of the best pathways to winning the chip this year. Probably the easiest contender stamp to give out amongst all these teams, but I'm giving it out to Denver. Now jumping straight to the East here, I'm going to spoil a little bit. So we've got 2 pretenders, 2 contenders. I'm sure it's pretty obvious, so don't hate me, don't call me predictable, but I got to call Heat pretenders, Knicks pretenders. We'll start with the Heat. I mean, I kind of hate to call them pretenders because we've seen them make it to the NBA Finals with Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra in 2020 against the Lakers, you know, just a few years ago. But I feel like with the Tyler Hero injury, I don't know if they have enough juice, you know. Duncan Robinson has sort of fell off. I don't know if they have enough juice to really carry themselves there. So once it comes down to it in the conference finals, they're going to have to face either the Celtics or the Sixers, who, saying it all video, I think that the ceiling is just higher for teams like them. I will say, though, the Heat of all the pretenders for sure have the highest floor, I would say, amongst all the pretenders in this category. A guy like Jimmy Butler, you've gotten vintage play from Kyle Lowry this series, this playoff so far. Gabe Vincent has really stepped up, and like I kind of mentioned, Eric Spoelstra is really a one-of-a-kind coach who's going to show up in the playoffs no matter what. They're always going to have a fighting chance. I'm going to give it to them. They're always going to have a fighting chance. Getting into the Knicks in a second, but both these teams are going to be, regardless, a hard out in the conference finals. That I don't want to put too much dirt on their name. When it comes down to it, both the other teams in the other series, when they get punched, they tend to wobble a little bit. Let the Knicks or the Heat kind of throw a little punch in game one of the conference finals, and they might have themselves a series, but we're not going to get there yet. Like I just said, with the Tyler Hero injury, Kyle Lowry's only going to give you so much. Wait, Jimmy Butler rolled his ankle. We'll see how he plays in game 3, but there's a lot riding on his shoulders. I have almost the same vibe as the Suns. Their contender-pretender status is going to be looming on their Game 3 performance, really seeing what Jimmy Butler's going to bring, if they're going to continue to hold up defensively, Bam, if he's going to stay consistent. Now it's the pretender stamp, and moving on to the Knicks, they're getting the pretender stamp too. Tom Thibodeau has shown me great potential with his defensive schemes. He's always going to bring that to the table when it comes to the playoffs for sure. You can't dismiss that because, as I just said previously, whether the Knicks or the Heat win this series, they're going to be a tough out in the conference finals for the Celtics or the Sixers. Knicks have this tenacity to them. They're rebounding. Mitchell Robinson has really upped his game, really brought it to another level. We need guys like RJ Barrett, Julius Randle to stay consistent, who I'll give some props to Julius Randle. He's really shown himself as an impact player, I feel like, this playoffs. He's going to make a difference, whether good or bad. He's going to make a difference for sure. You hate to have guys like Obi Toppin need to be like an impact player. Even, RJ Barrett, I know he's still coming to his own, and you hate to have him have to have such an impact on these games, but when it comes down to it, they're going to need to, and they're going to have to be consistent. In the same path question that I had for the Heat, and when they get to the conference finals, are they going to be able to withstand such a high-powered team like the Celtics or the Sixers? I don't know if I can put my money on it. Regardless, though, I cannot wait for this Eastern Conference Finals matchup because it's going to be a bloodbath regardless. I don't care who it is, that thing is going the distance. We'll see, but that thing is going the distance. Wrapping up, we'll talk about the teams that those two are going to be facing, the Sixers and the Celtics. I do have both of them as contenders. More so just the pathway. I feel like whoever wins this series is going to end up winning this Heat-Knicks series. They're going to beat the hell out of each other, and they're going to move on. And I think I just said this one's going to go the distance too, but, the odds are obviously going to be in the other team's favor, for sure. But I want to start with the Sixers, because I mentioned this previously, talking about the Heat and the Knicks, that they're gonna be able to punch one of these teams. They're gonna give a solid punch to one of these teams, regardless of what game it is, and they're gonna have to bounce back. The Sixers are gonna have to bounce back, and they've been known to be a team that doesn't bounce back very well. They get punched, they wobble, and especially in game, you can tell that if they go down 20, they're not gonna be able to even have a chance. Once they get frustrated, they start complaining, they lose themselves, they start stagnating the offense, their transition play just stumbles, they stop trying on defense, and they turn defense to offense. That's how they really get themselves going, and it's just feels like they don't realize that sometimes. You had game 1 where everyone seemed up and ready, obviously because Embiid was out. The guys were ready to go, and you had a 45-point vintage James Harden performance. I love to see the consistency we've been getting from guys like Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey. They've really come into their own, and in game 1, they really took initiative and took the shots that were out there with Embiid out. They've made it count so far in certain games like that, but when it comes to games like game 2, you knew the Celtics were going to come out with a different intensity. You knew the Celtics were going to win the game, I feel like, regardless, but you knew they were going to come out with a different intensity, so you also had to come out with that same intensity, and they just didn't really bring it. I'm going to take it with a grain of salt as much as I can, because they already saw game 1. They're bringing Embiid back, so I'm team reps for sure. So I want Embiid to get the minutes, get the time with the team, and you might as well see what the matchups are going to look like. And then you go from there. I don't agree with the people who said they should have just sat him because they stole game 1. You're just playing with fire at that point, and it's a little dangerous. Oh my goodness, they might have came out of game 2 with some even more questions than game 1 because the effort just didn't seem there. The intensity is going to be questioned. Embiid couldn't get himself going. He was trying to get the others going, and then once he realized he couldn't get himself going, Harden's already 0 for 6 from 3, and you got to try to catch up somewhere else. They put up their second lowest point total in a quarter in the whole season in the third quarter of game 2. So like I said, when they get punched, they wobble, and they wobble a lot. The defense went out the window in that third quarter. Doc Rivers called like 2 timeouts to try to bail them out, but each time they just came out with No intensity, no effort, no heart. They just kept letting the Celtics shoot threes. Malcolm Brogdon was letting that thing fly, and it was shots that the Celtics wanted. So it's one thing to just let them check up threes, but it was shots that the Celtics wanted. So you can't just roll over like that. But I mean, at some point, I think they did. I think they just sort of waved the white flag and were like, all right, we're going to worry about game 3. We'll take the split and see what we can get. Man, the Sixers have some questions, and they have such a high ceiling, I feel like, but they have such a low floor. They're probably like the contender with the biggest variance in their ceiling and floor. But I feel like they show the higher end of it more often than not. So I'm still giving them the contender status for the path they have. Finally, moving on to the Celtics, who have way less questions than the Sixers for sure, and they're definitely have a higher floor than the Sixers. You're not going to see the Celtics get as bad as the Sixers sort of got. I mean, Game 1 was a really bad loss for them. But they bounced back. They showed their resiliency, and you know when it comes to the Celtics, it's really just about their intensity also. Almost the same problem as the Sixers. If they don't get themselves going like early, if they don't have the offense flowing, it's hard for them to find that rhythm, and when they get punched, they tend to wobble too. But I do very much still believe in the team that made the finals last year, who added Malcolm Brogdon to the lineup, who has the depth. I mean, it's almost the same question that the Suns have. They have a lot of depth, and they kind of don't know who to play. They're kind of struggling to find their identity. I think they have the personnel to really match up and figure it out on the fly. They have the length. They have the defense. The offense comes in itself with Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You know, they have a lot of the pieces to figure it out on the fly and make the adjustments they need. But it's not the best team to necessarily have, especially in playoff series, and especially when it comes to that's what cost them the finals last year. There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of room for improvement. And I mean, at this point, it's not necessarily too late for that, but you gotta take advantage when you can and really put your stamp on games when you can. Losing Game 1, it's just things you can't do. You gotta come to that game with the intensity. You gotta know their stars out, the MVP is out. You gotta win that game. Intensity in the drive, I feel like it's just gonna be the main thing for the Celtics team. And really, if they can just figure that rotation out, because at some point it's gonna start affecting the stars like Jason Tatum, and it's gonna snowball. But man, is their defense good? Do they have the length, and do they have the star power? It feels like the ceiling's high enough, and they have the pathway to go through either the Heat or the Knicks on the other side and really put themselves in a position to have a good chance of winning the title this year. But shoot, I don't know, man. Like I said at the beginning of this video, if you're here, you're a contender. At this point, you put yourself in the position. You're 2 rounds away. You're a round away from being in the NBA Finals. So you're a contender at this point. Don't let me tell you you're not a contender and you're a pretender. I just think there's levels to it, and when it comes down to it, we're gonna see some teams, we're gonna see some true colors get exposed by some of these teams, and now's the time. Game 3s, Game 4s in the second round. Things are getting real. So we'll see. This just got sparked from seeing the Lakers get absolutely blown out. Then I'm like, I want every game to be close. I don't want these blowouts. I want more teams to be just. I want every matchup to be that good, you know? So we'll see what comes from it. I cannot wait for this Eastern Conference Finals matchup. I can't wait to see what comes out of the West from this Lakers-Warriors series. Primetime hoops, man. It's primetime hoops. Let's get it. I hope it made sense. I hope I covered everything for all these teams, you know. All rapid-fired through, get everything I can off my chest at least. And we'll see what comes of it. We'll see who makes the finals this year. Who is really the true contender. So always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, all the goodies, you know, get that out the way. Thank you. Now I'll see you back soon for another episode of The Atmosphere.